WSR Speaks is a platform presented to students and teachers in their school. The platform allows members of the WSR community to introduce and educate their viewers on topics found interesting and worthwhile sharing with others.
As this week is also Science Week, our school has decided to base this year's theme off of Science Week. Therefore, this year's topic being Science for and with Society, speakers approaching today's stage will be reaching almost all ends of this vast topic. How science touches our daily life, affects society, and maybe even helps us.
Due to current pandemic circumstances involving social distancing standards and limited presence in certain settings, this year's WSR Speaks will be held online. All footage you are about to see is been pre-recorded while maintaining distancing standards and restricted and regulated sanitation methods.
Lastly, we would like to once more proudly welcome you all to the first ever fully online 2020 WSR Speaks event. But before we officially begin, please help us invite onto the stage Principal Nicole, who will be giving the opening speech.
Hello and welcome to WSR Speaks 2020. My name is Nicole Haynes and I'm the principal of the school. I have just come to welcome and start the proceedings of this fabulous annual event, which is so important not only to our children, to our students, but to our whole community. This year in particular, the importance of science has resonated in everything that we've seen to do with this global pandemic. Without scientists, how will we find a cure? How will we develop a vaccine? How will we ensure that we keep our global society safe? So I'm really excited to see all of the different speakers this year. I believe we've got over 18 different speakers who will be talking from a range of different things, such as nanotechnology, vegans versus non-vegans, having a look at the way in which we learn, our different preferred learning styles. So I'm really excited to see all the research and all of the discussions and debates to see whether or not they are thought-provoking and inspire us to think more about science. Science is not just about biology, chemistry and physics. Science impacts every part of our world, down to our food, the air that we breathe, and everything that we at this moment in time rely on. Technology. What would we do if we didn't have technology in this global pandemic? How would our children continue to learn? How would they continue to succeed in this society? When we look at health, we want to find the cure not only to COVID-19, but we want to eradicate all the lethal diseases that we haven't found solutions for. And we know that it's within a scientist who will come up with that solution, who will be able to save lives. We want to ensure that climate change is not forgotten, that we understand that our planet is very fragile, and we need to ensure, whether it's the weather, whether it's floods, earthquakes, we need to know how we can protect our world so we can protect our future, and our future are in our children. So, closing this opening statement, I just want to say good luck everyone. We support you, and I want to thank all of those people behind the scenes, students and teachers, who have helped this to be another successful event. Thank you very much and good luck.
Thank you, Ms. Nicole. Technology is going to disrupt the future of work, perhaps sooner than we thought. Let's welcome Mazen to tell us more about artificial intelligence.
Hello, my name is Mazen. I'm a student in grade 12, and I'll be talking about why AI might be humanity's last invention. I'll start by talking about the game of Go. Go is arguably one of the oldest games in existence, going as far back as 2,500 years. It has but one simple goal: to surround more territory than one's enemy. Despite its archaic nature, it continues to remain popular to this very day, and human beings are no longer the only players. So what is AlphaGo? AlphaGo is an AI made by Google that specializes in the game of Go. In 2016, the 18-time world champion Lee Sedol was beaten in 4 out of 5 games by Google DeepMind's AlphaGo. This shouldn't come as a surprise, of course, as for the better part of 2 decades, computers are known skilled players in games like chess and checkers. But Go is different. Go is unpredictable. There are over 10 to the 170 moves possible. To put that into perspective, the immediate observable universe only has 10 to the 80 atoms. AlphaGo was coded to run through millions of games played by real humans as training. To prove how impressive this AI is, it not only analyzed and learned the techniques, it created new ones that 2,000 years of games had not yet achieved. This is a feat unimaginable. And this is a feat that would have been impressive if not for AlphaGo Zero. What many don't know is that a year after AlphaGo's victory over Lee Sedol, a brand new AI, AlphaGo Zero, beat the original. Not in 4 out of 5 games, not in 5 out of 6 games, not even in 10. AlphaGo was defeated by AlphaGo Zero 100 games in a row. And the most impressive part is, AlphaGo defeated its predecessor with 0 human interaction. No data was given, no historical figures, no guide. AlphaGo Zero was taught to play without the restriction of human knowledge and has surpassed over 2,500 years of games and strategy and intelligence in just 40 days. And it is regarded to be the best Go player in the world. This does beg the question, however, where would this leave us? If artificial intelligence can outsmart a highly unpredictable 2,500-year-old game with strategies it has created on its own, then there must be more non-human intelligence in AIs like Go than there is human. This then goes into the concept of technological singularity. AI may not be at the level of human intelligence at the moment, but it will be one day, and it won't stop at human level. Artificial intelligence can become so advanced that an extreme explosion of new knowledge and information may come into existence, most of which our human brains may be incapable of understanding. Does this mean a continual development in artificial intelligence would end up leaving us in representing a minority of intelligence? Maybe even representing rather a minuscule amount? Then that begs the question, we can always turn it off though, right? It's an idea worth hearing, but think. When modern day human beings began world domination, chimps and Neanderthals were unable to turn us off. If this artificial intelligence becomes super intelligent and connects to the internet, we simply can't shut off the entire internet. There is no off switch. There are different types of AI that serve different purposes. Artificial narrow intelligence, also known as weak AI, is the only AI that we have created so far. Weak AI was created for handling only one task. As observed in AlphaGo, narrow AI is good at playing games. However, narrow AI's purpose is not only limited to playing games. For example, if you use Spotify, you will see that it creates a daily mix for you, based on the music you listen to. Amazon is another prime example, as it suggests products you suggest products you might be interested in by studying your buying habits and search history. However, we are not limiting ourselves to only one-trick wonder, artificial intelligence. We are trying to get to artificial general intelligence, or AGI, which has more than a single purpose, and it has intelligence almost equal to that of human beings. But the more we look into it, the harder it seems to achieve. See, humans may be unable to process information at the speed of light. However, when asked, we can sort through a ton of unrelated thoughts and articulate a concise response to a question without having to brute force through every question. AGI is the most important artificial intelligence to be created. The difference between a weak AI and a strong AI is millions of times bigger than that of strong AI and super intelligent AI. If you get to making an artificial general intelligence, that AI can only improve itself into a super AI, which in turn will improve itself and keep on repeating this process faster than the other. The first recreation may take a month, the second a week, the third a day, and so forth. At the rate it will advance humanity, it is going to end up billions of times smarter than our creators, than its creators, us. But we have to be careful about how we make it, because there's still a huge difference between intelligence and wisdom. You see, if we were to give AI the order to solve world hunger, the easiest and most obvious solution would be to just kill all life on the planet, which is obviously not what we want. We'd have to somehow teach AI to have human-like values. These bring out many problems, and of course I will address them. To begin with, how we even program something like consciousness? We ourselves do not know what it is, let alone how to define it in codes. How do we even program something like a limbic system into a machine? How could we program it into something that has a sense of fear, or maybe even a sense of fear of death itself? And if we can teach AI to experience fear, can AI learn to love? If it can love, it can also hate, which could trigger more problems for us in the future. If we are creating intelligence in equal level to ours, it may learn to be like us. It may learn to have some negative traits that we humans have. It may learn how to be greedy. It may learn how to be selfish and rebellious. The potential is limitless. Having all the world's information at its disposal is useful. A super intelligent AI can have that, but then again, so do you and I. These are fears commonly brought up at the mention of artificial intelligence. However, the biggest and most pressing question would be, is it even necessary? This is the reason why artificial intelligence is an important topic. Super intelligent AI may be the last invention humanity may ever make. The technology and developments that could turn the human species into an even powerful species is coincidentally the same technology that could cause the downfall of humanity. Yes, the power of super intelligent AI is there, waiting to be found. But do we want to find it? Many are still resistant to super intelligent AI because they fear it. If we want to create the perfect super intelligent AI, we need to be prepared. After all, once it is made, it cannot be unmade. That's it. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Mazen. That was a great talk.
Being self-made is a state of mind, and once you put that mentality from work, your success will come. So let's hear more about that from Sarah Jamal.
I stand here today speaking about the fact that mentality had changed my life. Let me ask you a quick question. What do you think mentality is? Mentality is change of mindset and how you respond to situations. I remember watching one of Ray Louis' videos saying, if the lion is the king of the jungle, how can he be the king of the jungle if he's not the biggest? Because the elephant is probably one of the biggest. He can't be the fastest because that's cheetah. He can't be the smartest. So he's not the biggest or the smartest or the fastest. So how does the lion become the king of the jungle? His mentality. That's the only difference between a lion and an elephant. When a lion walks up and sees an elephant, he thinks lunch. An elephant thinks run. It's all mentality. Because when the male lion walks up, he may be outnumbered by a pack of hyenas. Before I begin with my story, I'd like to talk about the part of the brain that controls our mindset, which is cerebrum. It is the larger out part of the brain that controls thinking, reading, and emotions. The cerebral is divided into two cerebral hemispheres. Each hemisphere has 4 sections. One of those sections is frontal lobe.
It controls personality, decision-making, and reasoning. Here's my story. I found that nothing in life is worthwhile unless you take risks. Nothing. Nelson Mandela said, there is no passion to be found playing small and settling for a life that's less than the one you're capable of living now. I'm sure in your experiences in school, applying to colleges and picking your major and deciding what you want to do with your life, I'm sure people had told you to make sure you have something to fall back. But I never understood that concept of having something to fall back on. If I'm going to fall, I don't want to fall back on anything. I want to fall forward. I figure at least this way, I'll see what I'm going to hit. That's my mentality. Without consistency, you will never finish. So do what you feel passionate about. Take chances. Don't be afraid to fail. There is an old IQ test, 9 dots, and you had to draw 5 lines without lifting the pencil. The only way to do it was to go outside the box. Don't be afraid to think outside the box. Don't be afraid to fail big, to dream big. But remember, dreams without goals are just dreams. Thomas Edison conducted 1,000 failed experiments. Did you know that? I didn't know that either. Because the 1,001st, that was the light bulb. Fall forward. Every failed experiment is one step closer to success. You got to take risks. I want to talk to you about why that's so important. You will fail at some point in your life. Accept it. You will lose, and you will embarrass yourself. Early on, I have changed my school from an Indian curriculum, Indian school, to British school. Perfect decision for me, I thought. I said it would be easy, I'll pass exams. It's easier than the Indian curriculum. Duh. I didn't get the grades. But here's the thing, I didn't quit. I didn't fall back. I walked out there to prepare for the next exam, and the next exam. I prayed and I prayed and I prayed. But I continued to fail and fail. But it didn't matter, because you know what? There is an old saying, you hang around the barbershop long enough, sooner or later you're going to get a haircut. So you will catch a break, and I did. If you don't fail, you're not even trying. To get something you never had, you have to do something you never did. I found out that I'm comparing myself with other people and asking myself, why can't I be like them? Now here's the mistake that we all make. We follow the majority of people and forget to ask ourselves, why can't I follow the opposite? Whatever direction the crowd is going, go the opposite direction. Do you think most people are happy with their life? Do you want the result they have, or do you want more? It's all about mentality. I can't live with the mentality of the majority. If I want to be like the minor. My mindset must be as strong as or even stronger than the minor. I have to possess the mentality of a giant. What does it mean to be a mentality giant? It means your mind is larger, stronger than your challenges. It means your mindset is stronger than your setbacks. You can overcome anything when you believe in yourself. You can have to become a mentality giant. They might knock you down, but with a strong mentality, you will rise again. You will rise again. Last but not least, do not go where the path may lead. Go where there is no path and leave a trail. Well, Father, thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
Did you ever consider being a vegan?
No, but I'm interested about knowing about vegan diets.
Well, you're lucky because our head of science, Miss Emma Fox, will tell us more about veganism.
Hello everyone. The title of my talk today is Veganism for Non-Vegans. Now before you roll your eyes or lose interest in what I'm going to say today, I want to first tell you the following. 1. I am not vegan and I do enjoy many animal-based products. 2. The Dalai Lama once said, if you think you are too small to make a difference, try sleeping with a mosquito. Anthropogenic or human impact on the environment is difficult to ignore. Overpopulation, pollution, burning fossil fuels, deforestation, genetic modification, the manipulation of genetics of species using lab-based technology in order to obtain more desirable characteristics, for example, disease or drought resistance in crops. Selective breeding, creating variations of species that wouldn't exist without human intervention. This is the Belgian blue ball, bred from meat quality and quantity. This image is showing you a 56-day-old chicken in 1957 in comparison to the same aged chicken in 2005. Although great for meat production, this comes with many health complications for the bird. Many of these dog breeds would not exist without selective breeding, and again, although domesticated dogs are invaluable to us as humans, both as pets and as working dogs, for example, police dogs and dogs for the blind, far too many of these dog breeds have health complications as a result of our intervention. Lastly, for selective breeding, did you know that all of these common vegetables have been obtained through selective breeding of the same species? Ocean acidification. With this image, upon initially viewing this white coral, you might be fooled into thinking it's quite beautiful. However, this white coral is essentially the skeleton of dead coral destroyed through a process called coral bleaching. Ozone depletion. The loss of a thin layer within our atmosphere that absorbs almost all of the sun's harmful ultraviolet light. This has occurred through years of harmful gas emissions. And lastly, overfishing. These changes have triggered climate change, soil erosion, poor air quality, undrinkable water, food shortages, a loss of biodiversity, disease, the list goes on. Although this year, we were faced with devastation of COVID-19, it gave us an extraordinary insight into a possible future world where our impact is greatly reduced. You can see here the crystal clear waters observed in the canals of Venice during lockdown, where dolphins were observed for the first time in many years, and dramatic falls in pollution levels were recorded in major cities worldwide. I'd like to now take you on a journey of how Homo sapiens, humans, have taken over the world, as we might be fooled into thinking that this is a new problem. However, our impact on the natural world can in fact be traced back to the cognitive revolution 70,000 years ago. Homo sapiens living in Afro-Asia are thought to have first appeared on Earth 200,000 years ago and existed as hunter-gatherers, living off of the land and having very little impact. Throughout this time, sapiens had a varied diet and were by no means the top of the food chain. In fact, their diet would have consisted of mainly fruits and berries, small mammals, and the scraps of bones and marrow available to them after the large predators and the smaller scavengers had had their takings first. At this time, we had not developed the tools or social structures to be able to kill and hunt large predators. Approximately 70,000 years ago, the cognitive revolution occurred. This allowed humans to communicate at a level never seen before. This enabled us to talk about things we had never seen, never touched or smelled. It allowed us to retell religion, myths, legends and fantasy. It also drove the first mass extinction. We migrated across the Middle East to Europe, Australia and finally to the Americas, leaving devastation in our path. Before inhabiting Australia and America, these continents were home to many megafauna. The elephant bird, a flightless bird, similar to the ostrich but much larger. Woolly mammoths, the diprotodon. These animals had never encountered humans and had not acquired the knowledge to be fearful of us, and so were hunted to extinction within a few thousand years. It's thought that the megafauna of America were reduced by half during this time alone. Next came the agricultural revolution, 12,000 years ago, with the earliest known developments taking place in the Middle East. During this time, we cleared huge areas of land to grow crops of limited nutrient value, in a trade-off for the production of large quantities of food to sustain a growing population. During this time, many plant and animal species were lost forever. The incidences of disease contracted from domesticated animals increased, our lifestyle changed dramatically, and an unpredictable growing season meant starvation was inevitable. Many agriculturalists argue that this was humankind's biggest mistake. We are currently living with the industrial and scientific revolution. The third mass extinction is unfolding before our eyes. It says here, by understanding our history and how sapiens became the dominant species, we can broaden our perspectives and make more deliberate choices about our future. Now we know better, we need to do better. Sir David Attenborough has recently produced a wonderfully powerful documentary called A Life on Our Planet. I strongly recommend that you watch this, and if compelled to find out more, read the book Sapiens by Yuval Noah Harari. During an interview, Sir David was asked what message he would like to give to future generations, based on what we now know about the natural world, and this was his response.
To look after the wild world with which we are a part, to care for the animals that you see. Don't waste things. Don't waste food. Don't waste electricity. Look after the natural world. It's the most precious thing we have, and we are a part of it.
This finally brings me to veganism, a way of living that attempts to exclude all forms of animal exploitation and cruelty in favour of a healthier, more sustainable lifestyle that puts Earth's future well-being at its core. As sapiens, I feel we are obliged to consider our personal impact and make more sustainable choices through simple switches, for example, committing to one vegan or even meat-free day a week, saying no to plastic cutlery when you order a takeaway food, or avoiding fast fashion. The best time to act was yesterday. The best we can do is today, but if we wait till tomorrow, it may just be too late. Society needs to help itself in order to survive.
Thank you, Ms. Emma, for that interesting talk. Next up, we have Afnan, who's going to talk about nanotechnology and tell us how will it be used to create next generation's holograms.
Hello everyone, my name is Afnan and I'm from 11G1. Many of you are wondering, what is nanotechnology or what is it used for? Let me simplify your answer in an easier way to understand. Imagine you wake up one day seeing yourself shrink about 1,500 million times, and all that you see are atoms, molecules, cells, and tiny organisms. The cool thing about this is that you can move and play with the atoms as Lego bricks. It's hard to imagine how small nanotechnology is. 1 nanometer is a billionth of a meter. Making new things on this incredibly small scale is called nanotechnology, and it's one of the most exciting and fast-moving areas of science and technology today. Let me tell you a little bit more of nanotechnology's history. American physicist Richard Feynman is considered a father of nanotechnology. He introduced the ideas and concepts of nanotechnology in 1959, a talk titled "There is Plenty of Rooms at the Bottom." Feynman did not mention the name of nanotechnology, but he described the process which scientists would be able to manipulate and control individual atoms and molecules. Modern technology were actually began in 1981. By the early 2000s, nanomaterials were being used in consumer products from sports to digital cameras. Modern technology may be quite new, but nanometer scales were actually being used for centuries. Everything on Earth are made out of atoms, such as the food we eat, clothes we wear, buildings, the houses we live in, even our own bodies. As nanotechnology continues to progress, we are given the opportunity to explore new and more exotic of programming, software, hardware, and systems. One innovation that is growing at rapid pace is hologram technology. Holography is on its way to revolutionize medicine. It can be a tool visualizing patients' data in training students and surgeons. Current systems like MRI and ultrasound scans generate complex imaging technology. This technology has the capability to produce color imaging. Computer-generated 3D holograms. Holograms requires no device or glasses. Students and doctors can look through the 3D image at the 3D dimensional image. These images can include incredibly complex organs such as the lungs, the heart, the brain, even the muscles. Many people are interested in nanotechnology. Well, honestly, I'm interested too. Is anyone interested? The only thing which made me interested in this, it'll be easier for doctors in the future to do surgeries and to view the inner organ of the body. I hope you all enjoyed me speaking about nanotechnology. Thank you so much.
Well done, Afnan. Our diets are the result of million years of history. Let's hear more from Sarah Majdi about 100 million years of food.
Good morning, everyone. I am Sarah Magdi and I am from grade 11. Today, I am here to speak to you about my relationship with food. My friends often tell me that I eat every day and all the time, 24/7. That I eat all the time and my mouth keeps on chewing food 24/7. Eating while reading my favorite book, eating while playing Among Us. We eat all night and day in a frightening way. Guys, please hide the refrigerator. I feel that someday they will apply a curfew on the refrigerator and it will be forbidden to open it after 7 at night. There should be a certain number of times that I am able to open the refrigerator. It is inconceivable that every 5 minutes I go open it and explore it again. I swear it has nothing in it, but every time something in it disappears. Now, you might think, if I eat every day and all the time, why doesn't it show? Because it goes directly to my brain. That's why I'm clever. But for other people, it goes directly to their bellies and thighs, which is not bad, but for some people it's sad. Jokes aside, we have to think out of the refrigerator for some time. And luckily for you, my dear listeners, I came across a beautiful book, just like you, written by Dr. Stephen Lee at the Canadian University of Ottawa, on another pure topic which will make you busy from eating. Its name is 100 Million Years of Food. If we speak a little seriously, we'll discover that we have a clear error in our eating habits, which causes many health problems and complications. And these eating habits causes the diseases that is sweeping across the world. For example, diabetes type 2, obesity, and a number of cancers that affect millions of people every year. All of those health problems are related to eating in one way or another. But to understand what we are eating that causes these health problems and complications, we need to go back a little in time. The time when our food was supposed not to cause us these problems and complications. A time when people shared an amazing relationship with food. Today, if one of our ancient ancestors entered any supermarket, they would surely be amazed by the number of food options they could see. The idea that our ancient ancestors lived in tropical forests and their main food was insects. I know that you will definitely tell me this is disgusting. Insects? Hakuna Matata, guys. Today, according to the words of the scientists of the world of invertebrates and marine biology, Radomir Jaskula from the Polish University of Lodz, around 2 billion people around the world eat insects as part of their main diet. And according to the article Damien Carrington wrote in the Guardian newspaper, about 80% of the world's countries eat insects. I am serious, it is 80%. In fact, insects are a very rich source of vitamins, irons, and proteins. And far from any disgust, it was a great addition to the diet of the ancient man. But for us, if we live on only insects, it might not be a great idea. The bodies of our ancient ancestors used to secrete enzymes that could digest a substance in the outer layer of insects called chitin. But our bodies no longer secrete these enzymes, and therefore will not be able to digest this substance called chitin. So guys, going back to my relationship with food, I no longer feel guilty to eat. What I learned from all this, and I hope you all agree, is that learning to connect more deeply with what we consume to grow and nurture, and to have more mercy and affection for our own body will naturally help us to improve our relationship with ourselves and the people around us. Thank you.
Great talk, Sarah. Did you know that games can shape our brains and behavior?
Really? How come?
That's why we have Mr. Alfonso to give us more information about how science is related to games.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. I am Mr. Alfonso, physics teacher here in GEMS WSR. Today, I would like to talk to you about science gaming, because that's what I like to do when I'm at home. Today, let's find out how we can do gaming for and with society. But first, let's find out how many gamers are there in the world. I'll give you a few seconds, think about it. How many? On August 2020, there are roughly 3.1 billion gamers around the world, and that's around 40% of the population of the Earth. Now imagine if we can harness that power, if we can harness all of that time for science. How do we do that? Let's talk about gaming for science. Not science for gaming, gaming for science. But first, let's discuss the definition of citizen science. Citizen science is a research, or it's a movement for science, where the researchers are not scientific students, they're not scientific researchers, they are ordinary, everyday citizens. This means this can be our garbage man, this can be our parent, this could be you. What games could you play to help support citizen science? Let's take a look at our first game. Our first game is called iWire. Link is in the description and also on the screen. iWire is a game to map the brain, literally. In this particular game, Princeton researchers and gamers joined forces and discovered six new neurons in the brain just by playing the game. Okay, maybe this may not be your thing. Let's have a look at another game. How about Philo? Again, link is in the screen. Philo, think Candy Crush, but you're actually researching diseases. This might look like a game, but this actually harnesses the inputs that players place into the game, and they use it to develop a problem-solving feature for multiple sequence alignment problem. I don't know what that is, you'll have to ask your biology teacher. Next game, Night Shift. It's not all just puzzle games. My next game that I'm going to feature is a story-driven game. This is a game that makes you the emergency doctor. This gives you choices. Rather, it makes you make choices, difficult choices. In a research study, they found that the doctors who played this game got better results and had better patient results than those who did not play this game. Up next, block by block. Yes, I'm going there. Let's talk about Minecraft. You can actually game using Minecraft and help society out. In block by block, you design, in Minecraft, what they're going to build in real life. So you can check out their webpage. There have been a lot of projects, and there is an ongoing project right now that you can participate in. Next, for my final game today, let's talk about Folded. Folded sounds simple from its premise. You're folding, but you're folding proteins. In 2011, the structure for an enzyme of AIDS was discovered, and researchers spent 13 years trying to solve it. When they placed it in a game, gamers solved it in 3 weeks. So you can just imagine how much time could be saved by playing these games. Furthermore, Folded is now also part, and you could, maybe by playing the game, help solve our current pandemic crisis. So that's it for me. I'm going to place a number of links on the presentation. There are 3. You can check these websites out. These are filled with citizen science games. Games that you could play and tell your parents, Mom, I'm not just playing games. I'm actually trying to help save the world. Thank you, everyone. Be a scientist, be a gamer. Have a good day, everyone.
Wow, I didn't expect that. Thank you, Mr. Alfonso.
Have you ever thought about how your brain retains and recalls information? Let's all sit back and hear more about this from Bhagya.
Hi, my name is Bhagya, and today I'll be talking about human memory. So memory is a topic that comes under neuroscience, and neuroscience is basically the study of the brain and the nervous system, and this is one of the reasons why it comes to neuroscience, because memory has everything to do with the brain, and when it comes to everyday life, memory has a fundamental role in life, reflecting the past as the past and offering the possibility reusing all the past and the present experiences, as well as helping us to ensure there's a continuity between what was and what is going to happen. And this is one of the reasons why it is one of the most widely researched topic when it comes to neuroscience. And for today, I'll be mainly focusing on why are some memories stronger and stable over time than others. But before we go into our answer for that question, we need to look at the basics of memory. So what is memory? We all know the definition of memory, but scientifically, how can we define it? So scientifically, a memory is the reactivation of a specific group of neurons formed from persistent changes in the strength of connections between neurons. And in the brain, any stimulus results in a particular pattern of neuronal activity. Now, what causes this? What is the process of the activation of neurons? So basically, the process is called synaptic plasticity. So plasticity is the ability of our brain to adapt to new information by changing the strength between the brain cells. Now, where does this happen? Definitely the brain, but which part of the brain? So the answer is hippocampus. Hippocampus is densely packed with neurons, and it has the ability to produce new neurons through neurogenesis. And it is scientifically proven that neurogenesis can be increased through exercise. If you exercise, there's a chance that you can produce more neurons in the hippocampus, therefore which enables you to have a better memory. Now let's look at the reason why some memories are strong and more stable. So in order to find the mechanism behind this, a group of researchers from Caltech University, so they developed a test to examine how strong stable memories are encoded by teams of neurons all firing in synchrony, providing a redundancy that enables these memories to persist over time. So the experiment was basically they placed a group of mice in a closed system, and basically a room-like system. And on the walls of the room, they marked weird symbols along the wall. And at the ending and at the beginning of the room, they placed sugar water for the mice to drink. And on the first day, they observed that all the mice were confused. They just randomly went left and right. And the number of neurons that got activated on that particular first day was a single neuron. And over time, scientists observed that the neurons increased and activation of neurons increased. And when this increased was when the mice were traveling along the room, when they saw the particular symbol on the wall, all of a sudden the activation of neurons started. So they realized symbols on the walls helped the mice to recognize where they were. And as days passed, by the end of the week, millions of neurons were firing in synchrony when the mice saw the symbol. And this was the first part of the experiment. But in order to come to a right conclusion, we need to see how the number of neurons have an effect in better recall. So in order to do this, they placed the mice in a different room for 20 days, and on the 20th day, they again put the mice in the old room. And what the researchers observed was that the mice with higher neural activity recognized where it was and recognized how to go to the sugar water easier than the mice that had lower neural activity. And this led us to the conclusion that the more often a memory is recalled, the stronger its neural network becomes. And over time and through consistent recall, the memory becomes encoded in both the hippocampus and the cortex. And eventually, it exists independently in the cortex, where it is put away for long-term memory storage. And so basically, the fact is that active connections tend to get stronger, whereas those aren't used, the memories that we don't recall often gets weaker and can eventually disappear. And this is why some memories are stable, whereas some aren't. And this is one of the reasons why our teachers keeps on telling us go home and revise every single day, because Each time we recall the particular information, the stronger the connections get, the stronger the memory becomes, and the chances of it getting transferred to long-term memory is really high. And that's the experiment. This is our conclusion for the question. Now, why are these researches important? When it comes to application in medicine, these memory researchers plays an important role in finding a cure for Alzheimer's or any other memory loss diseases, because memory is the key to life itself. And when it comes to Alzheimer's disease, Alzheimer's disease is disease that has been researched on and on about in order to find a cure. Even though we have medications to cope up with, we don't actually have a cure that can cure Alzheimer's fully. So hopefully these researchers will help us to find a cure in the future. Actually, it has made us a lot closer to finding a cure, and so soon, maybe next year or the coming years, we'll be able to find it, and who knows, maybe one of the WSR students might be able to be a part of it too. Thank you.
Nicely done, Bagyo. Next up, we have Habiba, who will tell us more about nuclear power and the advantages of nuclear energy.
Hello everyone, my name is Habiba Naguib. I'm from Tanji 1 and today I'll be talking about nuclear power. Science has been a significant part of our everyday lives for ages now. We can't pass a day avoiding its usage. There are 4 major branches of science: mathematics and logic, biological science, physical science, and social science. Let's get deeper into physical science, more specifically electricity. Electricity was first discovered in 1752 by the prominent American scientist and founding father, Benjamin Franklin, through the famous kite experiment which sparked the discovery of electricity. He tied a key to a kite string in a thunderstorm, proving that static electricity and lightning are the same thing. Following this, scientists and people were eager to launch and discover ways to power electricity for the primary goal of lighting their houses in a cheap and safe way, instead of using oil and gas lamps, which were flammable and dangerous. Later in 1831, Michael Faraday found out that current could be induced by passing a wire through a magnet. This advanced discovery is used until now for the generation of electricity. The first electric light that's still in use until now was brought to life in 1879 by Thomas Edison. As a result of this invention, the entire gas lighting industry was made obsolete. Electricity can be generated through 3 major sources: fossil fuels like petroleum, natural gas, and coal, nuclear energy, and renewable energy sources. Most electricity is generated with steam turbines using fossil fuels, nuclear, geothermal, and solar thermal energy. Other major electricity generation technologies include gas turbines, hydro turbines, wind turbines, and solar photovoltaics. Now, I'll talk more about nuclear power. It began in the 1930s when physicist Enrico Fermi first found out that neutrons could split atoms. His first successful chain reaction was achieved in 1942. The first electricity produced from atomic energy was at Idaho's experimental breeder reactor 1 in 1951. The first nuclear power plant in the city of Obninsk in the Soviet Union in 1954, and the first commercial nuclear power plant in Shippingport, Pennsylvania, 1957. Nuclear power is generated by splitting atoms to release the energy stored in their nucleus through a process called nuclear fission. This process generates plenty of heat energy, which heats the cooling agent, usually water. The resulting steam spins a turbine connected to a generator producing electricity. The most common fuel used for nuclear power is uranium, which is mined and processed into uranium-235. This isotope can be easily split. Plutonium could as well be used. Unfortunately, uranium-235 was only known to comprise 0.7% of the natural uranium, with the other 99.3% being uranium-238. Hence, the separation of the two to obtain pure uranium-235 would be difficult and would require the use of their slightly different physical properties. This increase in the proportion of uranium-235 isotope became known as enrichment. About 450 nuclear reactors in the world produce around 10% of the world's electricity. The countries generating the most nuclear power in order are the United States, France, Russia, China, and South Korea. In a nuclear reactor, neutron subatomic particles that have no electric charge collide with atoms, causing them to split. In the US, most nuclear reactors are either boiling water reactors, in which the water is heated to a boiling point to release steam, or pressurized water reactor, in which the pressurized water does not boil but funnels heat to a secondary water supply for steam generation. A notable third-generation pressurized water reactor at the moment is the EPR. It has been mainly designed by the Framatome Areva between 2001 and 2017, Electricité de France in France, and Siemens in Germany. It came from a first collaboration between France and Germany in 1989. In Europe, this reactor was called as the European Pressurized Reactor, and the internationalized name was Evolutionary Power Reactor, but it is now simply called EPR. The EPR safety objectives are to lower the exposure of radiation to worker, lower the incidence, lower the risk of reactor meltdown, lower the nuclear waste, and reduce the cost of electricity production. At the past, awareness on the hazards of nuclear power wasn't spread. In 1986, the worst accident that has taken place in nuclear power generation history, now known as the Chernobyl disaster, took place in the Chernobyl nuclear power station in the Soviet Union. Workers shut down the power's regulating system and its emergency safety systems, as well as withdrawing most of its control rods from its core, while allowing the reactor to continue at 7% power. Later at night, the chain reaction in the core went out of control. The damaged plant released a large quantity of radioactive substances into the air. The UAE is embarking upon a nuclear power program in close consultation with the International Atomic Energy Agency, and with huge public support, it accepted a $20 billion bid from a South Korean consortium to build 4 commercial nuclear power reactors, with a total of 5.6 gigawatts by 2020 at Barka. Unit 1 of the country's first nuclear power plant was connected to the grid in August 2020. Nuclear power isn't a renewable source since it depends on finite resources, but its operation doesn't emit greenhouse gases that contribute global warming just like other non-renewable resources do, for example, burning fossil fuels. Advocates say that it might be a climate change solution. Thank you.
Thank you, Habiba. That was amazing.
Now, please welcome to the stage Amin Muhammad talking about antibiotic resistance.
Hello teachers and my fellow students. Today I am honored to be a part of this year's WSR Speaks. So how about I tell you some fun facts about bacteria? Did you know that 3% of your body weight right now is bacteria? So when you weigh yourself, just say that most of it is bacteria so it doesn't count. It isn't me. Most of them are harmless and some are even beneficial. They help with digestion. So next time you eat your food, make a little bit extra for your new little friends. They can be hungry too. Even though these ones are good and harmless, some are not good and are even harmful. They cause infections when they enter the body. What would you do? of course, you would take an antibiotic to help with it. But nowadays, some bacterial infections are immune to antibiotics, and that is called antibiotic resistant, where it just wouldn't do anything to them. Even though COVID-19 and many other viruses are our biggest problems right now, we need to still think about bacteria because they're like silent assassins waiting for the perfect time to strike, not so far behind. Now, what is antibiotic resistance? It is a random mutation that can happen in bacteria, which makes them immune to antibiotics, which means that getting an antibiotic-resistant infection will not help with anything if you use antibiotics for it, because it's immune. This mutation can occur for many reasons, but it is mostly due to people either using too many antibiotics or not using enough antibiotics. So the next time you have food on your plate, finish it without playing with it. Now, why this happens is that bacteria are introduced to antibiotics, which will increase the rate of mutations against those antibiotics. And when they occur, all the bacteria would die except the one with the mutation, which will cause it to be the only one to reproduce and which will therefore be able to spread its gene throughout the whole species. There are many examples of this, but of the two prominent are Streptococcus aureus, also called MRSA. It is one of the earliest known species that have shown antibiotic resistance. It was discovered in the 1960s, shortly after the introduction of a new type of antibiotics. They were resistant to most of the antibiotics they had, so the scientists kept creating new ones, which the bacteria just became resistant to also. Some of the antibiotics they are resistant to, you might know, such as penicillin and methicillin, and one that I am sure all of you know by heart, vancomycin. Another bacteria you might know, which also developed antibiotic resistance, is tuberculosis, or as the antibiotic-resistant variant is known, multi-drug-resistant tuberculosis. It was discovered in the 1960s too, except here in this situation, it was resistant to two antibiotics, isoniazid and rifampin, which are the only two effective antibiotics against tuberculosis, and it has caused many problems to people who get it because of how deadly it is and that it is uncurable at this moment. It is still being tested and experimented on daily to discover new antibiotics to aid the fight against it by scientists. It may seem like there is no hope for fighting against antibiotics, but there is. Believe it or not, scientists have already found ways to slow down antibiotic resistance, making it a lot smaller of an issue. Just through using a lot less antibiotics and listening to what an expert says, because they know the situation better than us. But the reason why antibiotics are still being used so much and why antibiotic resistance is still thriving is because people are not listening or understanding the situation we are in. One of the biggest concerns is that people want to be rid of diseases immediately as they occur, so they choose to take antibiotics. Even though that will help in the short term, it will be our demise in the long term. Because as the saying says, a few bad apples spoil the whole bunch. Since even if only a few number of people use antibiotics, the bacteria will still develop resistance and spread it throughout the whole species, which only makes the situation worse for everyone, and that is the only way for us to slow down and stop antibiotic resistance. It is through listening and doing what the experts want us to do, because this is a collective effort for us to stop it. We need to put down our differences and stop thinking as me and turn the M in that word upside down. Thank you for your patience and attention.
Thank you, Amin, for that wonderful speech.
And now, before we move on to our next speaker, we're going to take a short break and have Aima Yasser from grade 10 to perform What a Wonderful World.
called What a Wonderful World. Red roses too, I see them bloom for me, you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue and clouds of white, the bright blessed day, the dark sacred night, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. And the colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you. I hear babies cry, I watch them grow. They learn much more than I never could, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Thank you.
Ever heard about bacteriophage?
No, well, I know it's a type of virus, but let's hear more about it from Mark.
Hello secondary, I'm Mark from grade 10B1 and today I'll be talking about a topic that may be sensitive to some of you, viruses, and more importantly, the war between viruses and bacteria. Now to get it out of the way, if you find this topic boring at first glance, you're more than welcome to take a nap at any time. And there's no need to think. But before I briefly talk about viruses, I'm going to bring up antibiotic resistance. Now, when we get sick, we go to a doctor, right? Then they give us antibiotics to get rid of the bacterial infection. So since we depend on this type of medication, we've begun using it excessively. And so every day more bacteria become resistant to the antibiotics that we use so much. And so we can't use them as on that type of bacteria anymore, because resistance spreads rapidly as bacteria reproduce at a rapid rate. Another problem is that antibiotics kill all bacterial species when they're in our body, even the gut-friendly bacteria, which is why we call antibiotics broad spectrum. Also, did you know that the last antibiotic discovered was in 1987, around 30 years ago, and ever since we've had an antibiotic void, only enhancing previously discovered antibiotics. To summarize, antibiotic resistance is something we can't prevent. So, what if I told you that we could replace antibiotics entirely, or at least partially, and fix this dilemma? And you may have guessed it, we're going to use viruses. Now that you might be thinking, Mark, viruses can infect us and cause disease and kill us and stuff. And you're right. But believe it or not, those viruses are rare compared to the viruses we're going to use. Bacteriophages, meaning bacteria eaters. These viruses kill only bacteria. Amazing, right? But wait, there's more. As you may have guessed, these viruses are everywhere. There are around 10 billion phages on your skin right now. It's freaky. If all were human-infecting viruses on your skin, you would have been severely sick. Phages, just like other viruses, enter the host, hijack its mechanisms, make several copies of themselves, and eventually kill the cell by blowing it up. This is called the lytic cycle. In which the bacterium is lysed by the phages, releasing more phages to infect other bacteria. We, as grabby humans, can utilize this cycle to kill bacteria that infect us. I'm not going to go into how the phages are utilized or found. I'll just tell you their advantages to antibiotics. They kill us, they kill bacteria much faster, they have low development costs, and best of all, they can kill antibiotic-resistant bacteria. And then there are the disadvantages. They still need further research and development. They are specific, that is, we need to find the right phage for the right bacteria. And worst of all, we have to deliver them in vaccines. I mean, who even likes vaccines? Just kidding, we're literally depending on vaccines to save us from the you-know-what virus. Also, one important thing about phage therapy. A few thousand phages can kill several million bacteria. This can be pretty useful when giving doses, meaning that the doses can be very little and be enough to cure the ill person, unlike antibiotics, and so it takes less time for you to get cured. It's really neat. To end my presentation, I'm going to talk about viral structures. At this point, you can bring your blankets if you want to. There are 4 virus structures, as you can see. Filamentous or helical, the cylinder one, icosahedral or polyhedral, spherical, and complex, aka the structure of bacteriophages. All these structures consist of 2 or 3 things, which most of you probably know. A capsid, some genetic material which could be single or double-stranded DNA or single or double-stranded RNA, and sometimes a protein or lipid coat taken from the host cell. I would like to continue speaking, and I'm sure all of you want me to, but unfortunately my time's up. So I hope what I talk about today made you as interested as I am about bacteriophages, if not more. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mark. That was interesting.
We all know about COVID-19 and what it did to the world, but do we know how is the virus made, or what are the things that we need to kill the virus? We have Ms. Charmaine now to tell us how physics and COVID are related.
Hello there, WSR. I'm Ms. Charmaine. I'm one of the physics teachers here at the school, and I just wanted to talk to you about the role of physics in this fight against COVID-19. So many of us are following in the news about how scientists are trying to look for a vaccine, trying to look for a cure, and many of us may think that actually falls to those working in microbiology, looking at epidemiology, and kind of falling towards that biochemistry side. But in actual fact, it's physicists who are at the forefront now of trying to find out how this virus is evolving, trying to find out how it replicates, and they're doing that in a very, very special and unique way. I'm going to introduce 2 words to you, and I hope that when you think of COVID-19 now, you also think about these words, okay? And they are neutron crystallography. You may have heard of crystallography. Some of you who are studying physics may have talked about X-ray crystallography, but we're now looking at something called neutron crystallography. This isn't anything new. This is actually a technology that has been around for as long as I have. It's actually quite old now, and scientists have developed this now so that it has a defined role in medicine. Why is this so special? Why is it different from any other type of crystallography that may have been done in the past? Well, neutron crystallography uses neutrons. For many of us, a neutron is just a part of the nucleus of an atom. It doesn't really have anything special about it, it's not got any charge, it can be quite bland, and it just may feel like it's just something that kind of pads out the atom, something that gives it a little bit of extra mass, but doesn't actually really do anything. But it's actually this subtleness and this not doing anything, this unreactiveness that makes it so ideal for this technology. Because what this means then is that scientists can shine beams of neutrons through the virus. It can go undetected, okay? So it moves through almost like a ninja, not disturbing any of the molecules around it, which means then that that sample is not affected by the tests that are being run on it. This is very, very unique. It's very, very specific. This virus we know is different to anything else out there. At the moment, scientists are using drugs that they've used for SARS or for MERS, But this virus is not responsive in the way that they had hoped. That's because its RNA is very, very different. How it's different is the role of the neutron crystallography to kind of distinguish now. So what this does is it can map out exactly where the hydrogen atoms are in the RNA chains, and what it can do, it can specify the differences between the hydrogen 2 and the hydrogen 3. So the different isotopes of hydrogen are distinguishable by the diffraction patterns that this neutron makes when it's beamed through the samples. Not only does this mean that there's more detail in the test that they're doing, but it also means that the samples that they're using, this test can be run at room temperature. Many of the tests, many of the investigations have to be done either at super cool temperatures, super hot temperatures, but this can be done at room temperature. So again, this makes this technique very unique. What scientists are hoping are that this diffraction pattern that's generated will lead them to map out how the RNA is replicated. And if we can work out how it's replicating, how this virus is regenerating and producing more viruses, then they hope then that they can kind of pull the thread on this and unravel it so that they can then find the cure to stop it replicating. So that's kind of what the neutron diffraction and the crystallography are doing. But with that, with these investigations, comes copious amounts of data. So not only are the scientists at CERN carrying out these investigations, but they're not just passing on the data for the biologists to deal with, to analyse. That would take absolutely months. So once we've done the investigation, we've got the data, then we then need to analyse that data. And that again falls to the role of the physicist, because those physicists at CERN, the ones that you think are not really doing very much right now, are loading up their supercomputers, they've got their quantum processors, and they are going through this data to try and turn that around as quickly as possible. Okay? So I hope that's kind of shed some light on the role of the physicist in the fight for COVID-19. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Shami.
And next up, we have Lisa, who is going to talk about artificial intelligence, but this time it is related to healthcare.
Stephen Hawking once exclaimed, AI is likely to be either the best or the worst thing that can happen to humanity. Good morning, everybody. My name is Lisa, and I'm from 11G. Today, I provide a little insight about the question, is AI helping or hurting healthcare? The word artificial intelligence has been in the news for the last couple of years. Now, what exactly is AI? When a machine mimics a human-like behavior, like learning, planning, reasoning, and problem solving, then it falls into the category of AI. In today's world, we're driven by instant access to whatever we want. After all, we can do everything via an app. Set up rides, pay bills, order food for delivery, and shop for anything that can be delivered overnight. Cellular technology means we literally hold the world in our hands. However, when it comes to AI in healthcare, it does pose certain probing questions, opportunities and challenges, often both contained in the same scenario. In healthcare, AI is already changing the patient experience, how clinicians practice medicine, and how the pharma industry operates. The journey has just begun. As AI finds its way into everything from our smartphones to the supply chain, applications in healthcare fall into three broad groupings: patient-oriented AI, clinician-oriented AI, administrative and operational-oriented AI. The impact of AI on healthcare can truly be life-changing. Historically, in radiology practice, trained physicians visually accessed medical images for the detection, characterization, and monitoring of diseases. AI methods excel as automatically recognizing complex patterns in imaging data and providing quantitative rather than qualitative assessment of radiographic characteristics. A computer algorithm, Patch FCN, was developed by scientists at the University of California, bested 2 out of 4 expert radiologists at finding tiny brain hemorrhages. On the left is a typical brain scan a radiologist would see, and on the right is how AI would interpret the scan. You can see the hemorrhaging areas highlighted by AI patch FCM. The algorithm that the team developed took just 1 second to develop any signs of hemorrhage and major abnormalities within the brain. Moreover, the algorithm found small abnormalities that the expert missed. It is also noted that their location within the brain and classified them according to their subtype, information that physicians need to determine the best treatment. In yet another example, Google's DeepMind AI was trained by researchers from Imperial College London and Google Health to spot abnormalities on X-ray images of nearly 29,000 women. And in an independent study of 6 radiologists, the AI system outperformed all of the human readers. Cybersecurity. The scan of today takes about 800 books or 20 gigabytes. The scan in a couple of years will be 1 terabyte or 800,000 books. This sort of data explosion is available from these is almost really becoming a challenge. Now that brings us to the most obvious question. How do you keep all of this data safe? How hospital patient data can be kept safe using an enhanced AI cybersecurity? Now let's dive straight into molecular medicine. Emergence of new disease remains a critical parameter in human health and society. Advances in AI allow for rapid processing and analysis of massive and complex data. The researchers of Mount Sinai Medicine in New York have developed a unique collaborator, an in-house AI system known as Deep Patient. The researchers have taught Deep Patient to predict risk factors for 78 different diseases by feeding his EHR from 700,000 patients. Understanding the molecular and cellular basis of human disease is the key of nearly all biomedical research, with the aim of developing novel and more effective modes of diagnosis, prevention, or therapeutic intervention. Animal models over the years have been used extensively in the biomedical field since the early 1980s. But these animal models cannot actually replicate features of human diseased cells and tissues. Thus, there is a need to develop human-specific models. This is where AI comes in by creating 3D in vitro disease models. Organizations have been quick to apply the AI and machine learning know-how in the fight to curb this pandemic. It also played a crucial role in the prompt delivery of medical supplies and in disinfecting wards. Researchers at the Chan Zuckerberg Biohub in California have built a model to estimate the number of COVID-19 infections that go undetected and the consequences for public health, analyzing 12 regions across the globe. Machine learning is helping leaders make more informed decisions in the face of the pandemic, like how many hospital beds will the city need, or how long should we issue a quarantine order. The pandemic has taken a toll on the healthcare professionals, with its packed work days, demanding pace, time pressures, and emotional intensity. It is putting physicians and other clinicians at high risk for burnout. With the help of virtual nursing assistants, hospitals will be able to reduce sudden hospital visits and reduce the load on medical professionals. In health monitoring, there are a lot of AI-based health apps which can monitor a patient's vital parameters and medications. They can send critical alerts to the user or the doctor as and when needed. On the flip side, there are a lot of issues of AI that need to be addressed, including the huge cost involved, unemployment, overdependence on machines, moral and ethical issues. As Zeke Emanuel from University of Pennsylvania said, AI is only as good as a human programming it and the system in which it operates. As Apple CEO Tim Cook said, we should make sure we are using AI for the benefit of humanity and not for its detriment. The web, mobile devices, virtual and augmented reality are re-scripting our nervous systems, and they are literally changing the structure of our brain. The very technologies we have been positively using to influence hearts and minds are eroding functions in the brain necessary for empathy and decision making. In fact, our dependence upon the web and mobile devices might be taking over our cognitive and affective faculties, rendering us socially and emotionally competent. And I feel complicit in this dehumanization. While AI might look like an exogenous force with the power of a tsunami, in reality it is a reflection of our own choices and desires. Navigated wisely, this fourth industrial revolution will make us healthier and happier, and in turn make our planet a better place to live. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
What we learn becomes a part of who we are. And now we have Mr. Mujid to show us how learning is an art.
Good afternoon, WSR community. To the parents, my colleagues, and to my students. My name is Mojid Olajiri, and I would like to talk about the topic I named Learning is an Art. Let's take a moment and look at what I have on the screen. These are some of the lists that define what we did on our free time. These are things we naturally enjoy doing in our default mode. From swimming to playing football, reading an articles, journals, including cooking. But the questions are, let's take a look at these questions. Why is the process of learning different from the process of performing hobbies or other arts that we enjoy doing? What do I mean by this? When you do some of these hobbies, some of these things you enjoy doing in your free time, you are using some part of your brain. The same attitude you are using to do this, is it possible for you to learn your education or the arts that you want to do, some of the skills you would like to acquire? Is it possible for you to learn them the same way? The second question I want you to reflect on is my attitude towards learning the same as my attitude towards my hobbies? Let's take a look at it. Naturally, everyone would prefer to be doing all these hobbies, maybe you're swimming like I mentioned earlier on, than to learn. But the fact is that you use the same brain for your learning, and the same brain that you use for your learning is the same brain that you use to perform all these hobbies. But why is there a change of attitude? And that is what I want us to look at. The next thing I would like to see is that, is it possible to start enjoying my learning almost the same way I enjoy my hobbies? What I mean is that the same way you are enjoying your hobbies, the same way you are enjoying your football, your pairs, is it possible that I start enjoying my learning the same way? But the answer is yes. All these are possible. But what requires is change of mindset towards learning. The pressure that comes to you when you're trying to learn something, maybe your education or your art, or this pressure that we are trying to take on is what is standing between you enjoying your learning the same way you are enjoying your hobbies. I want us to reflect on that. Another thing that may come to your mind at this moment is that, see, I don't have what it takes to be best in this area of study. I don't have what it takes to be best in maybe the art that you want to learn, a skill you want to perform. But if you take a look at what you have done so far. Look at last year when you delivered a lot of masterclass of talents from singing in WSR as talents. Some of you perform dancing, singing, and a lot of things. All these are pure shows of class. Take a look back again. When you went to Dubai to brought home trophies, when you put WSR onto the world map, these are examples of pure show of class that shows what you can do when you try to bring your learning the same way you are performing your art or your hobbies. And Okay? Another thing you might want to say is that, really, can I also achieve all of this? The aim of this is not to push you too hard or to start comparing you with another one. The aim is to be the best possible version of yourself. And yes, you can achieve that. Take a look at what you have done, maybe in your home, where you receive some possible praise from positive praise from your parents. Take a look at what you have done in your class, where your teachers, the principal lauded your efforts. All these are examples of scenario that shows what you are capable of doing, only if you can try to think of your learning the same way as you are performing your arts and hobbies. Another thing is that, is it possible for me to achieve all of this? Yes, these are possible, because learning as a process is an art, just like the way your hobbies are art. Okay? Remember, don't push yourself too hard. Be the best possible version of yourself. Play to your strengths, okay? And take motivation from your own personal effort. And lastly, before I leave here, you might be asking, why do I need to be motivated to do this? Why do I need to bring my learning to heart? Is it possible? You have to do it. Be motivated for yourself, okay? Because only you can enjoy that. You have to be for your loved ones. You have to be that for your family. And lastly, for the country. We all need it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Majid.
Due to this pandemic that we are going through now, face masks are our main priority to protect ourselves from the virus that is spreading crazily around the world. Welcome Farid and listen to his thoughts about N99 masks.
"2020 has started as a normal year, where we all enjoyed life. However, in the other half of the world, specifically in Wuhan, China, we're getting attacked by a virus similar to flu or bad flu, infecting thousands and thousands of people daily. Hello everyone, my name is Farid Majid, and today I'm going to talk about how nanotechnology can help us during this hard time. After the virus had traveled and reached the other half of the world, suddenly everyone has been quarantined. Weeks and weeks are passing, everyone is thinking, will I really survive and don't catch the virus? In fact, I was one of these people. But I asked myself one question. What will happen if all doctors die? How I protect myself from COVID? What if there wasn't a vaccine? What will happen? After making some researches, I tried to understand and know, how did the virus attack the person's body? And why do people suddenly stop breathing? When the virus enters the body, the cells are all rich in surface receptors called angiotensin, which attaches the enzyme 2-ACE2 that have too many roles. But the most important one is that it regulates the blood pressure and it marks the blood tissues, and it's vulnerable to any infection. Because the virus requires the receptors to enter a cell, once inside the virus attacks any cell's machinery, making many copies of itself and invading new cells. However, in some serious cases, COVID can do a deep damage in your lungs. By today, around 50 million people were infected. But did you ask yourself, what about the other 7.544 billion? Why they aren't infected yet? It's because they wear a mask. Wearing a mask everywhere, anywhere, will decrease your chance of getting the virus. But what if I told you about the mask that will only make your chance of getting the virus only 5%? The X99 mask is made up of 3 different layers. The first layer can be called as the virus elimination layer, which is made up of the nanomaterial that kills the virus by contact. The second layer is the most important one, where it's made up of the virus repelling property. Here the virus is broken down, and if it entered the respiratory system, it won't be effective, because it will be already dead. And finally, the third layer is made up of a high efficiency filter with 95% of the virus restriction and repelling properties. The power unit in this mask has the ability to kill any active microbes, including the coronavirus. The ELU, which can be found in the second layer of the mask, has a high power electron magnetic pulse, which stops the movement of any microbial particles and destroys them. At the end of the mask, you will find the control valve, which allows the smallest amount of viral dead particles to pass into your respiratory system. X99 mask is the first mask in the whole world that can complete, kill, and fight against the coronavirus. The mask will bring the future of coronavirus defense into your hand today, and this is the perfect solution to end the pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you, Farid.
If the quantum mechanics hasn't profoundly shocked you, you haven't understood it yet. Let's hear more about quantum computing and cryptography.
What exactly is quantum computing? Let's think about it this way. Let's say you're about to prepare a meal and you're about to chop onions. You could go right ahead and peel each layer of that onion, or you could go straight ahead, hold that onion with one hand, and then run your knife through all the layers to cut that, essentially getting your final desired product. This is what quantum computing can be thought about. So, quantum computers, as compared to normal computers, allow you to perform operations on a whole bunch of input values simultaneously at the same time. This, as you can imagine, saves a humongous amount of time for tasks that would, take literally longer than the entire universe to solve. That's just, there's obviously a whole lot more to quantum computing than onions, but this analogy refers to one of the main aspects of quantum computing, which is superposition. Now, if you're a physics student, then you might have heard about superposition, or maybe you've just learned about it in class. But if you're not, don't worry, I'm here to explain it to you, so just sit back. You should know that we're not going to be talking about wave superposition, where you have 2 waves coming together to make one big wave. That's not it. We are talking about the superposition at quantum level. Let's look at a thought experiment to, imagine superposition. Schrodinger's cat. So, you should know that this guy, Erwin Schrödinger, he was a physicist, famous physicist, who carried out this thought experiment in order to explain what goes on at quantum level. So, what did Erwin Schrödinger do? Basically, he took a cat and he placed it in a box with a lid and everything, so that you don't see it, you don't see the cat, all you see is a box, right? In the box, other than the cat, he placed a radioactive material and a poisonous vial. Note that the poisonous vial has the poisonous vial is made out of glass, so it would break open if the radioactive material starts to decay. He ensured that the radioactive material had a 50% chance of decay, right? So when you think about it, if the radioactive material has a 50% 50% chance of decay, then the poisonous vial has a 50% chance to break open, and hence the cat has a 50% chance to die. Right, I should have probably mentioned that Erwin Schrödinger wasn't really fond of cats, but anything for science, I guess. Anyways, common sense tells us that you have two possibilities now. One is either the cat dies, or the other is either the cat lives. But Erwin, common sense doesn't apply to him. He said that the cat is both dead and alive at the same time. As absurd as it sounds, this is exactly what he said. He said that the cat exists as both dead and alive until and unless we observe the cat for ourselves. Until we open the lid and look in, the cat is both. We say that it is in superposition. Now, let's say once we open the box and we look in, we see the cat either dead or alive. We don't see it as both. It's just not possible. That is not what happens. That is because it is now no longer in superposition, because we have forced it out of superposition. We have caused the two possibilities to collapse into only one. Now, let me just drop in the definition of superposition. So, superposition is a system in which an object has two or more different states that can define it, and it can exist in all of them simultaneously until it is measured. Note that this phenomena is applicable to quantum mechanics. Now, if you're a chemistry geek and you like electrons, or perhaps maybe you just learned this in class, here's another example for you. In the physical world of chemistry, electrons exist in two quantum states. They're in superposition because they have a spin up and a spin down, and they exist as both spin up and spin down. It is a combination of both. That is, until we measure that electron, until we observe that electron for ourselves, it exists as both spin up and spin down. Now, only when we do measure that electron, it drops out of superposition and adopts only one position. You see it as either spin up or either spin down, not both. Now, you might be wondering why I'm going on about this. This is because superposition is exactly how quantum computers store information. Inside of quantum computers, you have what we know as qubits. Qubits can be thought of as the smallest possible unit of digital information. Now, the cool thing about qubits is the fact that they can exist as both 0 and 1 at the same time, unlike binary bits, because it stays in superposition. So compared to qubits, binary bits fall a bit boring. As you can imagine, this ability of qubits to stay in superposition enables them to hold and process so much more information than just classical computers. Along with this phenomenon of superposition, there's also quantum entanglement going on. Quantum entanglement is where each qubit, you can think of it as like each qubit is somehow, in some way or the other, related to the other qubit. Which means, if they're related to each other, which means that it means that their mathematical values, whatever mathematical values that we input, they will somehow be related to each other, even if they are at large distances. You can think of quantum entanglement as telepathy. Now, thanks to superposition and quantum entanglement, a quantum computer can process a vast number of information and calculations simultaneously. These qualities of quantum computers present us with countless opportunities like solving complex mathematical problems or computational problems, improving cybersecurity by producing hard-to-break security codes, aiding in drug development. For financial modeling, it can essentially in the future crack the RSA encryption, or even help design superconductors to work at room temperature, which is so cool. There are so many more applications to quantum computers than just this tiny list here. With that being said, I've geeked out enough. Thank you for your time.
Hello everyone. I've just come along here to say a big thank you to everyone involved in this amazing event. WSR Speaks is something we're all very proud of, particularly our students and our teachers who are brave enough to stand up in front of you and give their amazing speeches on all sorts of topics, from nanotechnology through to veganism. It takes real guts to stand up in front of a crowd, in front of an online crowd, and actually put a speech together and present it in the way that these people did today. And I want to say a big thank you to each and every one of them who took part. I also would like to thank the science team for putting an amazing program of events forward this week to celebrate Science Week, culminating in this WSR Speaks focusing mainly on science. I think never before in my lifetime can I remember a point when science has become so important in trying to find a vaccine for the COVID-19 in this global pandemic that we're all living through at the moment. And I think it was very apt that the focus was on science today. I say thank you to everyone. I want to particularly thank all the organisers of this event. I know the students have been fantastic in making us staff prepare videos and get ourselves ready for this event today. So thank you to the students who've been brilliant in their organisation. Thank you everyone again. Have a fantastic evening, afternoon, and I'll see you all again soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martin, for that great ending speech.
Now, before we officially sign off, we the student representative leaders would like to formally thank all the students and teachers who have been with us throughout the whole process of filming this year's WSR Speaks event.
The care, dedication, and effort shown by all who have participated in this year's event deserve to be applauded.
Specifically, thank you to our dear seniors who helped film and edit this video you, our audience, are watching. Also, a big thank you to all our teachers, secondary head Mr. Martin, and Principal Nicole for sanctioning and participating in this year's Speaks event.
We as a team are overjoyed by the fact that WSR Speaks was able to continue its streak and overcome certain barriers to bring this special event to our dear speakers and our audience. We hope you enjoyed watching this as much as we did making it.
Thank you for being with us, and make sure to be on the lookout for the next year's event.